Imagine a world without food allergies. This is the vision I brought to life when I started the Food Allergy Science Initiative in 2016. Good afternoon and good morning to our folks on the West Coast. I am Dr. Christine Olsen, co-founder and executive chair of the Food Allergy Science Initiative. Food allergies are life-threatening, and FASI believes there is a cure. Our world-renowned science experts from highly respected institutions have created a new field of research, which is transforming how we diagnose, treat, and prevent food allergies. It is this new research that I'm thrilled to share with you today. But this is personal. My food allergy journey started when my son was 8 months old and had his first reaction to sesame. We were told that the only options were avoidance and an epinephrine auto-injector. I realized the medical and science community lacked understanding of food allergies and what caused them. We were nowhere near a cure. I wasn't satisfied this. As a doctor and the mother of an allergic child, I assembled other parents dealing with the challenges, fears, and risk of food allergies. We brought together a team of scientists to understand why food allergies existed, why have they been skyrocketing, and what we could do to help find a cure. This includes many of you with your own stories and determination of a cure for food allergies once and for all. Thank you for joining me on this journey. So this is the problem. This is why FASI was started. There's an epidemic of food allergies in children and adults. 10%, almost nearly 11% of adults have food allergies, with almost half of them getting them as an adult, and about 8% of children. And we can only imagine what 2029 is going to look like if this was between 2009 and 2019. The only way to stop this is from understanding the root cause of diseases which are contributing to the rise. FASI is not just a grant maker, we're an active research institute. We have worked together with our scientists, mapping out a plan that will get us to a cure. We brought together scientists from different institutions. We built a bespoke infrastructure to quickly mobilize discoveries and fortify the process from idea to outcome. Our goal is to drive the concept forward with maximum efficiency and speed all the way to the finish line. I'm going to highlight some of our major discoveries here. As I said a few minutes ago, we started FASI in 2016. There was a lot to do to get to where we are today. And this is some of the stuff that we've done. And when you think about food allergies, you just can't think about the immune system. You have to think about the whole body. And this is how FASI thinks of it. Everywhere from the food, what's in the food, what's in the environments, what are the chemicals in the food, how is the body sensing it, and the process that occurs beyond that. And so one of the discoveries is how we have found the cells that have sensed the allergen within the gut lining. Before we could even do that, though, we had to map out the entire gut cell atlas. We partnered with the Broad Institute to do this and get this done. We then had to partner with them as well, where we basically discovered the nervous system, these yellow things in the nervous system in the gut as well. And one of our major discoveries, which was really transformed how we think about food allergy research in general, is the connection between the immune and the nervous system. And this is really transformative in the field and has changed the research moving forward of how we look at food allergies and how we think about the disease and how we think about curing it. We'll also go into some of these other areas today, including the circuits of the brain and what we have found there. But we are the largest funder of innovative food allergy research in the world. No one else is doing a comprehensive collaborative approach to food allergy research than us, truly focused on understanding the foundational science that could potentially lead to a cure. This is how we accomplish the goal of a cure, bringing together the brightest minds in science to collaborate. This is how science is accomplished in a streamlined fashion. Everyone here works together. We have bi-monthly meetings talking about our research. We have an open data sharing policy. We have other meetings discussing interesting topics that need to be solved with food allergy that no one's working on. We have annual meetings where we all get together, where we just this past month had 100 people 2 weeks ago come together to discuss this about what are the big questions to still be answered in food allergies, and what are the limits to that? How can we get by any roadblocks to make sure we can reach that? We've invested over 30 million in food allergies since our inception. We did 7.4 million with about 21 grants last year. And this year we have 6.6 million in with about 20 grants this year. So after doing a lot of this basic foundational research, we're now at the point where we're taking a turn, and we've kind of put it in 3 major bucket areas of science that we're working on: environment and diet and its influences and the development of food allergies, how that interacts with the food, the gut-brain axis, and how do we translate that into knowledge, into action, so it gets back to our patients and can help with the cure. So I'm going to talk about something, I've mentioned this before in another webinar that we did, but you have to think about any disease by what is a disease, and you have to think about it that in order to solve the disease as well, from the first principles of disease and why we have certain functions. And in this slide, which is, you know, not pretty, we have vomiting, sneezing, and itching. But these are all common allergic reactions that we see when someone has an allergic reaction, but they're also common basic defenses that the body has. And it has these defenses because it's a way of the body to get rid of anything that it's exposed to that isn't harmful to it. So any toxins or irritants. And so allergies aren't, you know, as someone as a food allergic kid, you know, allergies aren't necessarily bad. What happens in our children or in yourself and the other adults is that it's an overreaction of the system. And so these are normal physiological processes that we all have. And in allergies, it's exacerbated. And that's what we're trying to find out. Why is it exacerbated and how we can reverse that? And so this is just kind of explaining it in a different way. These are allergic defenses and they all have benefit. Okay, if something gets on you, you scratch it off. If you inhale something, you cough it out. And if you eat the potato salad from the picnic that's been sitting there too long, you vomit it up and get rid of it because the body wants to get rid of it to keep you safe. Unfortunately, it can go in excess. And this is where it is with food allergies, where you end up with this hyperreactive response. And that is the area where we're trying to get it back on the curve, where it becomes a defense, but doesn't become harmful. We have the beneficial effects without the harm. And you always have something on the other side of the spectrum as well. And you're gonna have to, excuse me, I have a little bit, I woke up with a little cold this morning. So I'm losing my voice and needing to drink water. And I may cough slightly. Good news is my COVID test was negative. Turning investments into breakthroughs. So I'm excited today to talk to you about these 3 areas of research that one of the 3 areas, and I picked these 3 because I find them interesting myself, and I thought it was a nice array looking at it from different perspectives on itch and how that relates to food allergies, microbiome, and how we think about it here at FASI, and anaphylaxis. Why do some allergies lead to anaphylaxis, and how do we reverse that state of hypersensitivity? The first project is done by Dr. Carrie Sokol. She's a FASI principal investigator, assistant professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, and she's a physician at Mass General Hospital in allergy and immunology. Really fantastic scientist in person. And so, and I'm using her slides today and walking through some of her research with you today. And when you think about food allergies, most of us have heard about the LEAP trial, and that early introduction is very important for prevention of development of disease. And so what Dr. Sokol has done is think about why. Okay. And so when we're talking about this, and we're talking about itch, and we're talking about skin responses, we are talking about food allergies. Most peanut allergic kids react on their first exposure to peanuts. So how do they get exposed? Exposure to peanut exposure and household dust nearly double your risk of developing food allergies. Skin exposure can promote whole body allergies. So skin exposure to food can promote food allergies. So skin and itch play an important role in food allergies, just like you get exposed in the gut. So why do we itch? We can think of the beneficial side of itch as removal of parasites and toxins. Every animal in the universe has a sensation to itch, whether it be a monkey, the kangaroo, or the bear over here. It's an unpleasant sensation that elicits the desire to scratch. It's a disorder that can be marked by embarrassment and disability equal to that in chronic pain. So what Dr. Sokol did is she basically asked the question, well, what's the function of itch? Why is it important? And so we have to think of this from what are the beneficial, just like I showed you the beneficial side effects of allergic defenses with nausea and vomiting, there's beneficial side effects to itch as well. And that's the removal of parasites and toxins. On the other side is the harmful response, which is the chronic itch. And so Dr. Sokol is investigating why does it go to the spectrum of harmful and how can we move it back? So she was interested to see, does the itch have anything to do with the development of allergies? And so what Dr. Sokol found was a clue that there might be something more to itch. So when she zoomed in on the skin, she saw that there's these itch sensing neurons here in yellow, and that they're closely related and co-localizing, as we call it, with these allergic dendritic cells. And these dendritic cells are responsible for initiating an allergic reaction. So what she did next is, could these cells be related to itch and starting the immune response? And so she continued with exciting research. She discovered that this was the case. Itch is intimately connected to the initiation of allergic response, whether it be a dust mite, pollen, or food that touches the skin. It can activate these inducing neurons, leading to the sensation of itch. And once that happens, that releases this neuropeptide called substance P, which then talks to the immune system and initiates the immune response. This is so fairly normal. But what happens is that these specialized cells that she's discovered over here, especially in people with atopic dermatitis, kind of prime the nerves and prime the immune system and make it a little bit more hyperreactive. So then you can all of a sudden turn from this beneficial response over to the harmful response. And so what some of our exciting research now is she's looking at, how do we block this? And if we block this, can we block the development of food allergies? How will it help atopic dermatitis and chronic itch as well? So now I'm going to focus on what we're doing within the microbiome. And this is by Dr. Seth Rakoff-Nahum. He's a FASI principal investigator. He's associate professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School. And he's an associate physician in infectious disease at Boston Children's Hospital. So food represents a complex mixture of chemicals derived from plants. You eat the tomato, but what your body really looks at is this chemical structure right here. All of which are modified by the microbiome in our gut. And these chemicals can be spent by specialized cells in the lining of the gut. And so this is what we have to think about, is how does the body evaluate these food compounds that look like this, and what is their impact on the gut? And so when you think about, I'm going to just backstep a little bit when we go back to allergic defenses, when you think about your diet, is that the natural context, right, of food was not this. And it's very important to think about the body and the gut as a quality control system. So the gut is the only thing exposed to the outside world. Skin is a barrier. Your lungs are supposed to be just gas exchange with no pollution. It would be that way. But your gut had to be able to take food in from the outside world and figure out safe, unsafe. And this is evolutionary the way that it has been. Unfortunately, our environment has changed a lot around us. This is our diet now. It's full of dyes, chemicals, preservatives. And so now our body has to not only detect what can I pull out any nutritious compounds out of there and absorb it, and what do I do with all the other stuff? What do I do with the chemicals? What do I do with the preservatives? And you have to think evolutionary when you saw that graph of the epidemiology of food allergies on the rise. It can't be genetics alone. Genetics can't change that quickly. It has to be an environmental aspect. And this is how it used to be. We used to walk into the forest and we'd have to pick out a plant that was safe to eat and eat it. And plants have their own natural defense mechanisms. They want to survive as well. I mean, you can think of poison ivy, you touch it, you get a rash, so you don't touch it again. That's its defense mechanism. But some of those defense mechanisms are not necessarily something as strong as poison ivy that you touch it. Some of it is that when you digest it and absorb it, it has some compounds that may be good for you, but it might have some negative compounds as well. And so what Dr. Seth is doing is he's looking at this enormous potential for the microbiome in human health. And so the National Institute of Health Human Microbiome Project identified more than 10 to the 14th microorganisms in their testing. These microorganisms encompass more than 1,000 species. Sorry. And with its essential physiological role, the composition and concentration of these microbes differ along the tract, and it's affected by the host diet. So these are some of the questions that he's looking at. We have to think about this again from that evolutionary perspective, is that these bacteria co-evolved with humans over thousands of years, and they have a symbiotic relationship. Humans consume these prebiotic fiber, which is metabolized by resident microbiome, and then it goes into these short-chain fatty acids, and these help regulate immune responses. And the modern use of chemicals, preservatives, antibiotics, consumption of high sugar, low fat diets have adversely affected this host microbiome symbiosis. And so a disruption in the symbiosis can lead to development of allergic disease. And so what he's doing is he's asking all these different questions that you can see here, but when you look at it in this chart, what he's really looking at is you're taking in all these different compounds, okay, into your diet. So if you think of these as these food chemicals, and here's your microbiome, it has to take it, digest it, produce a product that hopefully is good for the body, and it digests it, and you have a happy, healthy person. But sometimes you're taking things that not so good, and whether you don't have the right bacteria either in your gut anymore, and you develop more disease. And this is not just for food allergies, it's probably related to many types of other diseases as well involved in gut inflammation. So what he's looking at is how can we do it? How can we take what we know, and how can we basically give the good products here, have it interact with the microbiome, give it to someone with unhealthy disease, whether it be allergic disease or others, and transform them to someone with a healthy gut. He's had to develop very specific platforms to do this, and developed a high throughput screen to look at different plant products, chemical products, to see how they interact with the gut, what is needed, what they form after they have the interaction between the food and the gut, and how it actually causes a healthy gut. And there is enormous potential for improvement in human health in this. The next project was with Dr. Ruslan Mezitov. Dr. Ruslan has been with FASI since the start. He's really the scientific thought leader behind FASI, coming with the scientific plan. He is the one that had said the nervous system is involved, immune system. We need to find out how that interaction occurs and build upon that we have to see the whole picture of the disease in order to understand it and solve it. He's a Stolen Professor of Immunobiology at Yale's University School of Medicine, and he's been a Howard Hughes Principal Investigator since 2000. And so this slide excites me, and you're going to see some science in there that may or may not excite you as much as me, but hopefully it does. But again, in FASI, we're thinking about this as the whole body, and it's a whole disease. So you think about it from the very first principle of the person and the taking in the object. And so when you see this, and let me just explain what this is a little bit, is that this is the lining of the gut. And in here are specialized cells. So this slide is going to show you a little bit of some of our accomplishments and then lead into and one specific project that Dr. Mezitov is working on. And so when you look at this, so as I mentioned before, FASI had to map out all the cells of the gut, which it did, and then it found special sensory cells and figured out which ones are they interacting, which ones are the microbiome bugs, what are they, and what are they interacting with, which specific type of cells, and what is that causing? What about our diet? What about all these different components of our diet, the nutritious, the unnutrition components, and then xenobiotics, which basically means any unnatural chemical, whether it be antibiotics, Tylenol, ibuprofen, chemicals in your food, and how preservatives in your food, and how do they interact with the gut and what type of response they have. And so I'm just going to go look at this. And so in this is really amazing to me, is this was published in 2020 in Cell by Dr. Mezitov, and it basically looked at, and it was the first paper in nutrition ever done that has shown that the immune system is involved and monitoring what comes into your body, deciding whether it's safe and whether you absorb it and you have digestion and nutrients, or you get rid of it. You have an allergic type reaction and you expel it. He went on to make some other discoveries with some of our other FASI investigators, showing that these nerves go right to what's called the vagus nerve and up to the brain. And not only, and then what happens in the brain? In the brain, he made discoveries that when you eat something you're allergic to, it sends signals to your brain, whether it be the first time or the other time, to say, okay, this food was bad for me. We need to remember it. And that happens in an area called the hypothalamus. It also goes to an area called the amygdala. And in that area, that's your fight or flight. If something happens, whether you decide to run or fight, goes in there as well. And that gives you a little bit of anxiety. So next time you see this food that you have this bad allergic reaction to, not only do you have this avoidance behavior from it, from remembering it, you have a little anxiety to it too, because you want to make sure you don't go near that again, because this was a life-death situation over time when we evolved, and it was such an important feature of survival that it's still with us today. And it's more prone to have, say, a false positive, a type 1 error, meaning that we think it's bad, we're not sure, but we're going to say it's bad because of that critical life-saving potential action that the body could have to expel when it has these allergic defenses. So all that you have seen here in this slide, from the nutrition absorption to what is coming in the body, what are the chemicals involved, Dr. Wang at Yale is working specifically on this, looking at preservatives and chemicals and how it interacts with specific cells and causes gut sensitization that may not cause a food allergy right away, but if it's always associated with another product, might cause sensitization that could eventually lead to development of a food allergy, which may be one reason why we have a rise in food allergy in adults as well. And so these are really, when you're looking at the screen, which is pretty amazing, these are really discoveries from a combination of all the 21 principal investigators involved in working together in FASI that couldn't have been done without us all coming together to work together. Another project that Dr. Mezitov is doing, and I also love this project as well, is, this is the gut lining, right, that we just showed you. So food comes in, it's hanging out in the lumen, and these cells are lined up here, and then you have specialized cells. This is an immune cell, this is a nervous cell. And when the food comes in, the body has to decide safe, unsafe. Okay. If it says it's safe, you develop tolerance. It says, okay, this is good for me. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to digest it. I'm going to absorb it. And you remain an intact barrier of the gut. This is where we think about for prevention, right? How can we make sure when we, no one really knows this, and this is something we're working on. How does tolerance truly develop? And so if we figure out that, we can figure out how to prevent the disease. And another one is, how do we reverse the disease? And so when you think about that, so one thing Dr. Mezitov is working on is there's a whole system of immune cells, nervous cells, and special sensory cells in the gut that when you eat something that's bad for you, and it goes into a cycle, right? For some people, it might just lead to an intolerance and you have diarrhea and then you cramping and you avoid that. But in others that have the true IgE related food allergy, you get this cycle where you have a hypersensitivity and you become hyperreactive and you have where they're talking to each other and end up with anaphylaxis. And this is how you end up with that harmful aspect of some of the allergic defenses. And what we're looking at is how do we switch it back to the beneficial response, and how do we reverse this disease back to a healthy, normal state with an intact gut that doesn't go into this hypersensitivity reaction. And this is one of the major areas of research right now that we are working on. So you can see our mission in action. FASI investigators are transforming science to diagnose, treat, and cure food allergies. And we need your help to reach our to keep reaching these research milestones. FASI is a nonprofit. We're the largest funder of groundbreaking food allergy research, and we have work to do. We'd love for you to be part of this incredible journal. Consider supporting us with a donation. Share our discoveries with your friends and family, and tell them that FASI has put hope on the menu. Thank you for your support, and I'll answer some questions now that have been in the chats. So just get a quick look. And as I go, you can read this. It's going to be exciting. We'll introduce Dr. Vasquez next month or December. So looking at some of the questions, and I know we're supposed to end at 12:30, so I'll try to go quickly here. Someone asked, specifically focusing on Dr. Sokol's work in itch. If itch is an immune activator, could you block the itch? And would that limit the immune response? And the answer to that is yes. That's exactly what Dr. Sokol is looking at. She has made major discoveries within looking at skin, how the nervous and immune system are interconnected within the skin. Saw that some cells involved are probably priming that interaction, making people more allergic. And this may be because they have atopic dermatitis or eczema. And now she's looking at how can we block that so that does not occur. So yes, very exciting research. There's one, microbiome is constantly in the news for a number of health issues. If we can better understand the proteins and other compounds that make up our food, is there an intervention with our microbiome to avoid sensitization for food allergies? Yes. And so that is what Dr. Ravkov Nahum is working on. And so he has made some major discoveries within the microbiome, some of which we'll publish soon, looking at what is the food, how is it broken down by the microbiome, and then what type of immune response occurs, a healthy one versus an unhealthy one. And giving that, if you know all, it's like a chemical equation, A plus B equals BC, plus C, if you can figure that out, you can hopefully figure out, what components you need of A and B to get to AB, which is healthy. Just to give an analogy. I feel like I'm helping my son with his math work right now. And then there's another question about food and industrialization of food, and does organic foods address this, and how could you reduce the incidence of food allergies? The question is yes, probably. I tell all my patients food is medicine, movement is medicine are my two quotes that I give most often. And I do think that's what we all need to be doing, is having a healthy diet with 40 to 50 grams of fiber per day, which helps feed the microbiome. But the question will really come down to what part of the food is most important and which foods are most important. And that's something that we're screening right now and looking at within our diet and environment initiative within FASI. All right, we'll do one more question. Sorry, everyone, I have to look to the side here to make sure I have this. Will this research help pollen allergy? Yes. So all these allergic defenses, whether you have an allergy, you have an intolerance, are all in probably the same basic principle. A pollen allergy is to specific proteins within the environment that you get. So yes, it should help that. Should help cat and dogs the way we think about that. And what I find personally fulfilling, I'm a physician, I do cancer, is that I think our research is very impactful in many areas within science. And for me, that is, really impactful and makes me really proud of the work that all the FASI scientists are doing. Because I think it's really going to set up the stage, not only just for food allergies, but many other diseases along the way as well. Um, and it's 12:32. So I wanted to thank you all for joining today. Um, and we hope to see you at our next webinar in December with Dr. Vasquez. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a good day.